The alien nursery was filled with quiet humming sounds and soft blue lights. Built deep inside the shining towers of the colony on planet Arendor, rows of pods glowed gently, each holding a tiny life inside. But that night, one pod echoed with a different sound, a desperate cry high and sharp that made everyone stop. Nurses and caretakers glanced at one another, whispering in their strange language. No one wanted to go near that pod. The small creature inside was not like the others. Its skin was too pale, almost human in color. Its eyes were large, bright, and silver, and its breathing was uneven. They had called it the defect, or worse, the monster, ever since it was born. Even the doctor in charge avoided looking directly at it. Every time he tried to touch it, the hatchling screamed louder, small claws scratching the air, sensors blinking red with distress. Some said it carried a curse. Others said it was not meant to live. The elders whispered that maybe human contamination had caused this birth. In the corner of the room, a young human woman mopped the floor quietly. Her name was Ilara. She was not a doctor or a scientist, just a janitor, one of the few humans allowed to work inside the alien sectors. Her job was simple: clean the floors, empty waste containers, and never interfere. She had heard the stories about the monster hatchling, but when she heard its cry that night, something in her heart ached. The sound was not frightening to her. It was lonely. It sounded like a baby in pain, crying for someone who would never come. She looked at the alien nurses who stood frozen, refusing to move closer. "Is no one going to help it?" she asked softly, but no one replied. One of the aliens hissed, "Stay back, human." "It is dangerous," Ilara hesitated, her broom still in her hand, but the crying grew weaker. The little creature's chest moved fast, its heartbeat loud through the glass. She couldn't just stand there. Without asking permission, she walked closer to the pod. The aliens gasped and stepped back. Alarms blinked on the wall, warning that an unauthorized human had entered the restricted zone, but Ilara didn't care. She pressed her hand gently against the glass. Inside, the small creature blinked, its silver eyes locked on hers. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, slowly, the hatchling reached out one trembling claw toward the glass. Its cry faded into a tiny whimper. Ilara whispered, "Hey there, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Her voice was soft and warm, the kind a mother would use. She had no children of her own, but her tone carried the instinct of care, the kind that came from deep inside. The baby's breathing slowed. The sensors turned from red to green. One of the alien doctors stared in disbelief. It's calming down," he muttered. Ilara smiled. She kept talking softly, telling stories of the stars she used to watch from Earth, stories of rain and sunlight and wind. The baby seemed to listen, its little claws tapping the glass, its eyes half closed. The room fell silent. Every alien stared. None of their advanced technology, none of their medical devices had worked, but a single human's voice had done what no one else could. It brought peace to the monster. Hours later, when her shift was over, Ilara still sat near the pod, humming a simple tune she remembered from her childhood, a lullaby her mother used to sing. The baby had fallen asleep, curled up with its tiny wings folded close as she stood to leave. One of the alien supervisors stopped her, his long eyes narrow. "You have done something impossible. Human, but do not come near it again. This is not your place." Ilara only nodded, though her heart felt heavy. She didn't understand why showing kindness was forbidden. She turned to leave, but the moment she stepped away, the hatchling stirred, its tiny body trembling. Then came the cry again, louder, sharper, desperate. The aliens panicked. "It's reacting to her absence." One shouted. Ilara turned back, walked closer, and once again. The baby stopped crying. Everyone froze. The monitors stabilized instantly. Now the truth was clear. The strange creature would not calm unless she was near. Its eyes searched for her the moment she left, and its heart rate slowed only when she returned. Word spread quickly across the colony. Whispers ran through every hallway. The human janitor soothed the mutant hatchling. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a threat. That night, as Ilara walked back to her small sleeping quarters, she thought of the little one's face, those soft eyes filled with confusion and fear. She had never seen such loneliness. She couldn't stop hearing its cry in her head. She sat on her bed, staring out the small round window toward the alien night sky. Planets and moons glowed in silver mist, she whispered to herself. No creature deserves to be alone. Back in the nursery, under the faint blue light, the hatchling stirred again, curling its tiny fingers as if reaching for something in its dream. The monitors flickered once more, recording a strange pattern, a rhythmic pulse that matched exactly with Alara's own heartbeat. Even though she was miles away, no one knew what that meant yet. No one could guess how that one act of compassion, a human touching glass and whispering comfort, would change the destiny of two worlds. But that night, the colony watched something they had never seen before, an alien hatchling born with fear and rejection, sleeping peacefully for the first time, because somewhere out there a human cared, and though Alara didn't know it yet, that small act would soon make her the center of a storm that would shake both the alien empire and the human alliance, all because a monster had chosen her, and the child would never again sleep without her. Days turned into nights on planet Arendor, but in the nursery, time seemed to move differently. Ever since that night, nothing had been the same. The alien hatchling, once called a monster, refused to sleep unless Alara was near. Every evening, after finishing her cleaning duties, Alara would quietly walk into the nursery, pretending to check the floors. She wasn't supposed to be there. The guards had warned her more than once, yet she couldn't stay away. The sound of that small creature crying tore through her every time. The hatchling's pod now glowed softly when it sensed her. It would press its tiny claws against the glass, eyes bright and warm, waiting for her to hum that same lullaby, the one that had somehow calmed it before. Alara smiled every time she saw it. "Hey, little one." "I'm here," she would whisper, and instantly the baby's heart rate slowed. It was strange, she thought, how something so feared by others could feel so innocent to her. She didn't see a monster. She saw a frightened child, but not everyone shared her feelings. The alien caretakers had grown uneasy. Whispers filled the corridors. "The human has bewitched it," they said. "It listens only to her voice," another hissed. "This is unnatural." One evening, the chief caretaker, a tall alien with crystal-like scales, approached her. "Human, you must stop visiting." His voice was calm but cold. "This bond is forbidden. The creature needs to be raised by its own kind." Alara lowered her head respectfully. "With all due respect, sir, it won't eat or rest unless I'm here," she said softly. "It's suffering. The suffering will make it strong," the caretaker replied. Turning away that night, Alara obeyed the order. She stayed in her small quarters trying to sleep, but she couldn't. The sound of the storm outside mixed with the faint echo of cries coming through the hallway vents. She covered her ears, but the cry kept calling her name in her mind, faint, trembling, like a heartbeat she could feel but not touch. By morning, she couldn't take it anymore. She ran to the nursery and found chaos. The hatchling had torn at its feeding tubes, monitors flashing red, the nurses struggling to contain it. The moment Alara entered, the baby went still, breathing fast. Its tiny claws reached out toward her again. "Alara, stop!" shouted one of the guards, but it was too late. She had already picked the creature up. It was smaller than she remembered, weaker, trembling in her arms. "Shh," she whispered. "I'm here now," and once again, the impossible happened. The baby's vitals stabilized. Its pulse slowed, its breathing evened. Everyone in the room went silent, their glowing eyes watching the human holding the being they had feared. One of the scientists muttered, "It reacts to her neural pattern." "It's impossible," another recorded the readings, whispering. "Their biosignatures are syncing again." Alara didn't care about their data. She just rocked the hatchling gently, humming the soft tune. The little one made a cooing sound, a sound of peace. That evening, the guards escorted her to the colony's administrative chamber, a vast hall of light and silver metal. There sat 3 council members, tall, elegant, and cold-eyed. "Human," said the one in the center, "you have interfered with restricted subjects. Do you understand the danger of your actions?" Alara stood nervously, her hands clasped. "I only wanted to help," she said quietly. "The hatchling was dying." "You risked contamination," another hissed. "That creature is unstable. It should have been disposed of at birth." Alara's heart clenched. "Disposed of," she whispered, disbelief in her eyes. "It's just a baby." "It is not a baby," said the elder. "It is a failed experiment. A hybrid gone wrong." Her hands shook, anger mixing with sorrow. "Then maybe the failure isn't in the creature," she said, voice trembling. "Maybe it's in the way you treat it." A murmur spread across the chamber. The guard stiffened, but before the elder could respond, a sudden sound echoed from the hallway. The hatchling's cry, distant yet powerful. The council's control panels flickered, lights dimming as the sound filled the room. The child had escaped. Moments later, the doors burst open, and the hatchling, glowing faintly, crawled inside. Dragging its small limbs toward Alara, the guards moved to stop it. But the creature let out a piercing shriek that froze everyone in place. Alara ran forward and caught it in her arms, whispering softly until it stopped trembling. The council members stared, speechless, their scanners showing that the creature's energy levels had stabilized again. "Impossible," one whispered. "It's responding to her emotional wavelength." The leader finally spoke, his tone softer now. "This bond cannot be undone," he said slowly, "but it cannot be allowed to exist either." Alara looked down at the hatchling nestled against her chest. It had fallen asleep again, its breathing steady. "You can call it wrong," she said, "but I call it life." The guards took the hatchling away once more, and Alara was escorted out, forbidden from entering the nursery again. Yet every night she could still feel it, a small heartbeat echoing inside her chest, matching her own. In the silence of her small room, she would whisper into the air, "Sleep well, little one," not knowing that somewhere across the colony, in its sterile pod, the hatchling would calm down and finally drift to sleep. The bond they shared had crossed laws, rules, and species, and no one understood it. But something ancient and powerful had awakened, a connection no council could control and no science could explain. Soon, that forbidden bond would either save them both or destroy everything the aliens had built. But for now, it was just a lullaby in the dark, shared between a human janitor and a hatchling who only knew one truth: it could not sleep without her. The council hall stood high above the colony, carved into a tower of living crystal that shimmered with pale blue light. From the outside it looked peaceful, almost sacred, but inside tension burned like a silent storm. Word had spread through every level of the colony. The human janitor had bonded with the rejected hatchling. Alara was summoned again, this time not as a worker, but as a subject of inquiry. 2 alien guards with silver armor escorted her through long corridors lined with humming lights. She walked quietly, hands clasped, heart racing. She had no idea what awaited her inside. The moment the great doors opened, she saw them. The High Council, 5 tall figures with translucent robes, their skin glowing faintly under the light. Their eyes sharp, emotionless. Behind them floated holographic screens filled with readings, genetic scans, and images of the hatchling sleeping in its pod. "Alara of Earth," spoke the eldest counselor, his voice deep, almost echoing in her chest. "You stand before the Council of Arendor accused of unauthorized contact with a hybrid specimen." Alara swallowed, her throat dry. "I didn't mean to break your rules," she said softly. "I only wanted to calm it down. It was in pain." "In pain?" Another counselor leaned forward. "That creature's pain is its own making. It is flawed, unpredictable, dangerous. It's a child," Alara replied, her voice shaking. "You call it a monster, but it only cries for comfort," the council murmured among themselves, lines of alien script flowing across the screens. One of them turned toward her again. "Do you understand what that hatchling is?" he asked coldly. "It was the result of an experiment combining alien and human DNA. An experiment that failed. We intended to erase it quietly, but your interference changed its fate." Alara's heart dropped. She had suspected something unnatural, but hearing it confirmed made her dizzy. "So, it's part human?" she whispered. "Yes," replied the elder, "and that is precisely why it must be destroyed. Its existence threatens both species." Alara took a step forward despite the guard's warning. "You can't destroy something just because it's different," she said. "Maybe it was born this way for a reason." The hall grew silent. The elder's cold eyes studied her carefully. "A reason?" he said. "Human sentiment is your weakness. Your kind always believes emotion can fix everything." "Sometimes it can," Alara said quietly. "Sometimes that's all we have." At that moment, the chamber lights flickered, and a sound echoed from the communication panel. A cry, faint but clear, the hatchling's cry. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. One of the scientists spoke from the corner. "It's reacting to the human stress levels." "The connection has grown stronger." The elder slammed his hand against the console. "Enough," he roared. "This bond must be severed immediately." Alara flinched, but then she noticed something strange on the screen. The hatchling's biopatterns flickered wildly whenever she was upset, its small body thrashing against the pod walls, the sensors flashing red when she steadied her breathing. It calmed. The monitors turned green. It was as if their hearts shared the same rhythm. A young alien scholar in the back hesitated. "Counselor," he said softly. Perhaps we should study the link further. It might reveal. But before he could finish, the elder silenced him with a glare. You forget yourself, scholar. This is contamination, not revelation. Guards turned toward Alara, ready to escort her out, but just then, a sudden tremor shook the chamber. The walls vibrated, and a deep humming filled the air. Energy surge in the nursery, a voice shouted from the comm line. The hybrid is destabilizing again. The counselors froze. Alara's eyes widened. She didn't wait for permission. She ran toward the door. The guards shouted after her, but she pushed past them, sprinting through the hallways, her boots echoing against the polished floor. She reached the nursery and gasped. The hatchling's pod was cracked open, its small wings spread out weakly. Sparks flying from the broken life support cables, it was struggling to breathe. Surrounded by frightened doctors who didn't dare touch it, Alara, shouted one of them. You can't go near. But she didn't listen. She rushed forward, kneeling beside it. Hey, it's okay, I'm here, she whispered. The hatchling lifted its trembling head, its silver eyes meeting hers. The monitor stabilized instantly. The energy pulse faded, and the creature let out a soft sigh, pressing its forehead against her palm. The room fell silent, every doctor frozen. One of them whispered, it healed itself. Moments later, the council arrived, their long robes sweeping the floor. The elder looked furious. Remove her immediately, he ordered. But before the guards could move, the hatchling spread its wings, protecting Alara, a low growl vibrating from its chest. A warning. The elder paused, eyes narrowing. It's defending her, he said slowly. Against us. No one spoke. The scene was too powerful to deny. Alara held the baby close, feeling its tiny heartbeat against her chest. Please, she said, voice trembling. Don't take it away again. You'll kill it. The elder looked at her for a long moment, then turned to his counsel. This is no ordinary connection, he said finally, but it cannot be allowed to continue unchecked. He looked back at Alara, his tone cold as steel. Human, you will remain under observation. You will have no contact with the hatchling outside approved hours. And if its condition worsens, you both will be terminated. Alara nodded slowly. Though her heart ached, she didn't care about the threat. She only cared that the hatchling was alive. As she left the chamber, she glanced back one last time. The baby was still watching her, its small claws tapping softly against the glass. In that silent moment, an unspoken promise passed between them. No counsel, no law, no fear could break what had already begun. For in a world that had long forgotten compassion, a human heart and an alien soul had found each other, and that connection, though forbidden, would soon decide the fate of both their worlds. Night had fallen heavy over planet Arendor. The sky churned with violet clouds and lightning that forked across the horizon. A storm was coming, one the colony had not seen in decades. The power grids flickered as thunder shook the metal towers. The air itself buzzed with static. Inside the nursery complex, alarms began to echo through the halls. Blue emergency lights pulsed against the walls. Guards rushed past as Alara tried to steady a tray of cleaning tools. She wasn't supposed to be there after hours, but she had begged the guards for one more minute. Just one more chance to check on the hatchling before the lockdown. The glass of its pod glowed faintly, the baby stirring as if sensing the approaching danger. It's all right, Alara whispered, placing her hand on the pod. I won't leave you. But her words were drowned by the sound of the storm crashing against the structure. The building trembled. Sparks shot from the ceiling as lights went dark. She heard shouts in the distance. Containment breach! Systems down! Then everything went black for a moment. Only the sound of rain and the hatchling's faint cry filled the air. Alara's heart pounded. She groped in the dark, her hand brushing against the pod. It was warm, too warm. She felt a vibration running through it. The hatchling's small body glowing with energy. Alara, someone shouted behind her. A technician holding a flickering light. Get away from it, the power's unstable. The generator could. He never finished his sentence, because the floor beneath them shook violently. A burst of light erupted from the pod, and the glass shattered outward. A wave of force sent both of them sprawling. Alara coughed, smoke filling her lungs. She blinked through the haze and saw it. The hatchling, small, trembling and free. Its tiny wings spread in fear, not anger. It whimpered, searching, calling for her. Without hesitation, she crawled toward it. Ignoring the sparks that rained from broken wires above, she wrapped it in her arms, shielding it as more explosions echoed through the building. Come on, baby, we have to move, she whispered. Clutching it close, the emergency doors began to close automatically, sealing each corridor one by one. The aliens were locking down the entire sector to prevent damage from spreading. If she didn't escape now, they would both be trapped inside. Alara ran through the dim corridors, water dripping from the ceiling, the hatchling clinging tightly to her chest, its faint whimpers vibrating against her heartbeat. Lightning flashed through the skylights, showing her the way forward. Behind her, she heard the heavy footsteps of soldiers, their voices distorted by their helmets. There! The human has the hybrid. They raised their weapons, but before they could shoot, the storm struck again and a blinding flash split the air. The building's power core overloaded. The force knocked them off their feet, walls cracking, fire sprinklers bursting to life. Alara didn't look back. She pushed forward, slipping through narrow maintenance corridors she had cleaned 100 times. She knew this place better than most of the guards. She knew every shortcut, every escape duct. The hatchling whimpered again, its body glowing faintly, lightning energy dancing across its wings. I know, hold on, she whispered. We'll be safe soon. She reached the lower bay door, but the lock was dead. The power failure had sealed it. She hit the panel again and again. Come on, open! She cried. The baby stirred, looking up at her with wide, frightened eyes. Then it did something she couldn't believe. It pressed its claw against the broken control panel. A soft hum filled the air, the circuits sparked, and the door slid open with a groan. Alara stared in shock, then smiled through tears. You clever little thing, she whispered. Let's get out of here. Outside, the storm raged, wind tearing at her clothes, rain pouring like shards of glass. She stumbled through the flooded walkways, clutching the hatchling close, its tiny wings wrapping around her arm like it was trying to protect her too. From above, searchlights swept the compound. Drones buzzed, scanning for movement. A voice thundered over the intercom. Containment breach detected. Subject 07 and human worker are unauthorized. Capture on site. Alara ducked under a collapsed structure, breathing hard. They're calling you Subject 07, she whispered, brushing her fingers over the hatchling's head. But you're not a number, you're someone, aren't you? The baby cooed softly, pressing its head into her palm. And despite the chaos, she smiled. Yeah, I thought so. Another explosion shook the ground, a tower nearby collapsing under the lightning strikes. Alarms wailed, and the air turned red with warning lights. Through the smoke, she saw a vehicle, an old maintenance rover half buried in debris. She ran for it, climbing inside and setting the hatchling gently on the seat beside her. The engine coughed, sparks flew, but it roared to life. As she drove through the chaos, the storm lit the sky behind her, shadows of ships moving in the clouds. They're going to come for us, she whispered, tightening her grip on the wheel. But I won't let them take you again. For the first time, she felt the hatchling's small claws grip her sleeve, as if understanding her words. Hours later, when the storm finally broke, the world lay silent, the colony in ruins. Search teams scanning the wreckage, but they found nothing. No trace of the human janitor or the creature that had been called a monster. Far beyond the colony walls, in the ruins of an abandoned outpost, Alara sat beside a small fire, the hatchling asleep in her lap, its breathing soft and peaceful. She brushed her fingers gently over its wings and whispered, You're safe now. Little one. Outside, the rain stopped, and the first rays of dawn painted the alien sky in gold. For the first time in its short life, the hatchling slept without fear. And for the first time in hers, Alara felt like she had found something worth risking everything for. Neither of them knew it yet, but that night's storm had changed the course of two civilizations, the human who disobeyed the stars, and the hatchling that should never have lived, had just escaped destiny. Together, when the storm finally faded, dawn painted planet Arendor in colors no human language could name. Golden mist hung above the shattered towers, and the air still hummed with static from the night's destruction. The colony was silent except for the faint hum of repair drones sweeping across the wreckage, searching, scanning, reporting. But what they didn't know was that miles beyond the colony walls, deep inside the forgotten ruins of an old mining outpost, Alara sat quietly beside a dim fire, the hatchling wrapped in a torn blanket beside her, its breathing steady but faint, its scales flickering weakly between silver and pale blue. Alara had barely slept. She kept checking the baby's pulse, listening to its soft sounds, each breath a reminder that it was alive, but also fragile, too fragile for the cold. She tore part of her uniform to wrap it tighter, whispering softly, It's okay, little one. You're safe now. But the truth was, she didn't know how long they would stay safe. The colony was already searching for her. Drones passed overhead now and then, their lights slicing through the mist, and her small fire could only stay hidden for so long. The hatchling stirred suddenly, small claws twitching, its breathing hitched, then it whimpered. A weak cry, its skin glowing faintly again. No, stay calm, Alara whispered, lifting it gently. I'm here, look at me. I'm here, but she could feel it. Something was wrong. Its body temperature was dropping fast, its heartbeat faltering. She panicked, searching her memory for the medical room layouts she used to clean. There had been scanners, nutrient vials, oxygen pods. She had seen the doctors use them. She wasn't trained, but she remembered. She couldn't go back to the colony openly, but there was another way. The old research bunker just beyond the eastern ridge. A place the aliens had abandoned years ago. Half buried in dust and shadows, if she could reach it. Maybe the equipment still worked. With the hatchling bundled close, Alara began to walk, her boots crunching over the ash-covered ground, the rising sun casting long shadows behind her. She was exhausted, but every time she thought about stopping, she looked down at the small creature in her arms and kept moving. By mid-morning, she reached the bunker. The metal doors rusted, half open. She pushed through. Coughing as dust filled her lungs, inside was dark and cold. Old machines flickering faintly with residual power. She found a functioning pod and carefully laid the hatchling inside, connecting the cables like she had seen the medics do. The screen blinked to life. Foreign symbols filled it, but some translated automatically into human letters. She saw readings of pulse, oxygen, and neural activity, all dangerously low. Come on, baby, she whispered, her hands trembling as she searched for anything useful. Don't give up now. Then, something unexpected appeared on the monitor. A second rhythm, faint but steady, running parallel to the hatchling's vitals. It matched the rhythm of her own pulse. She frowned, touching the glass, and as she did, the hatchling's reading spiked upward. Its heart rate strengthened, oxygen levels stabilized, its glow brightened again. The machine hummed, lines dancing in perfect sync. What? She whispered, eyes wide. You're connected to me. Tears blurred her vision as she realized what it meant. Her presence wasn't just comforting it, it was keeping it alive. Her heartbeat was stabilizing its mutated DNA, her cells somehow resonating with its hybrid structure. It wasn't a curse, it was a connection, a living bridge between two species that weren't supposed to understand each other. Outside, thunder rumbled again, faint and distant as if the planet itself listened. Hours passed, and Alara sat by the pod, humming the old lullaby again, her voice echoing softly through the empty bunker. The baby's body glowed brighter with each note until finally it opened its eyes. Weak but full of light, she laughed through tears. There you are, she whispered. You scared me. Little one, the hatchling made a soft cooing sound, pressing its tiny claws against the glass. She opened the pod and it crawled into her lap, curling against her chest for a moment. Everything felt still, safe. But that peace didn't last long. In the distance, a mechanical hum broke the silence. Search drones. Sweeping low across the plains, she froze, holding her breath. Dim red lights flashed outside the cracked bunker window, scanning beams cutting through the dust. A voice came over a communicator. Distorted but clear. Thermal signature detected. Sector 17B, possible hybrid trace. Deploying capture unit, Alara's heart raced. She grabbed her small bag, wrapping the baby close. Not again, she whispered. They're not taking you again. She turned off the remaining lights and slipped through the back tunnel, the hatchling tucked beneath her coat. She could hear the whir of machines behind her, the metallic footsteps of alien soldiers echoing through the valley. But even as she ran, she couldn't stop thinking about what she had just seen. That strange connection, the shared heartbeat, the matching biopatterns. She didn't understand it fully. But she knew one thing for sure. They weren't just bonded emotionally. They were linked on a level deeper than anyone had imagined. She was keeping the hatchling alive, and somehow, it was keeping her alive too. By the time night fell again, Alara had found another shelter, an old service tunnel under the colony's edge. She collapsed on the floor, exhausted, the baby asleep in her arms, the faint light of its body casting silver reflections on her face for the first time. She wasn't afraid, not completely. She whispered softly, "They'll call us fugitives now, maybe even enemies. But I don't care." She smiled faintly. "You're not a monster. You're proof that we were meant to meet." And as the baby slept, the scanners in the faraway colony labs flickered to life, doctors gasping as data streamed across their screens, showing something they couldn't deny. The hybrid's mutation had stabilized, its chaotic genes perfectly balanced, its energy levels normal, its growth pattern corrected. One scientist whispered, "Impossible." The human contact corrected the defect. The hybrid's DNA is now complete. The council received the report within minutes, their silence heavy as they read the data, the elder's eyes narrowing as he murmured, "So the human has changed it, perhaps changed everything." Back in the darkness of the tunnel, Ilara held the sleeping hatchling closer, unaware that across the galaxy, her act of compassion had just rewritten the laws of alien biology, and that her name, once forgotten among cleaning staff, would soon become legend because that night, the universe itself had witnessed something no science could explain, a miracle born not of technology but of love. The colony's lights glowed once more after weeks of silence. Engineers worked day and night rebuilding what the storm had destroyed. But behind those shining towers, rumors whispered through every corridor. The human janitor had vanished with the hybrid hatchling, the monster that had nearly destroyed the lab. Yet something strange followed those whispers, reports of miracle data, unexplainable readings that showed the creature's mutation had stabilized. The council called it impossible, the scientists called it evolution, but no one could deny the truth anymore. The hybrid had survived, and so had she far away, beyond the colony's edge. Ilara and the hatchling had lived in hiding, days turning into weeks. She had learned to feed it, to clean its wings, to calm it when thunder scared it. The baby had grown stronger. Its scales shimmered like moonlight now, and faint ridges of gold lined its small forehead. Sometimes when Ilara hummed her lullaby, the hatchling would try to copy her, making small musical sounds that almost sounded like words. It made her laugh softly. "You're learning faster than me," she'd say, brushing her fingers over its head. But she knew it couldn't last forever. Food was running low, and drones were sweeping further each day. She had heard that the council was preparing something, a command to capture or kill on sight. Not just the hatchling, but her too, still. Every night when she looked at the baby sleeping peacefully in her lap, she couldn't regret anything. She whispered, "If they find us, I'll protect you." No matter what, that promise would soon be tested. One morning, the silence was broken by the distant roar of engines, bright beams cutting through the clouds, search crafts approaching fast. Ilara's breath caught. She looked at the hatchling. It was awake, its eyes wide, glowing faintly, as if it already knew what was coming. She picked it up quickly, wrapping it in a scarf. "Stay quiet," she whispered, pressing a finger to her lips. They moved through the tunnels, her heart pounding. Footsteps echoed from above. Orders shouted in alien voices. "Scan every passage, recover the hybrid alive." But fate, as it often does, had its own plan. A beam of light broke through a crack above, striking them both, and the next instant, soldiers surrounded her, their armor gleaming in the half-light. "Weapons raised, Ilara of Earth," shouted the lead soldier. "By order of the High Council, you are under arrest for theft and violation of interspecies law." She held the baby close, trembling but defiant. "It's not theft when you're saving a life," she said, her voice shaking. The hatchling hissed softly, wings flaring protectively. The soldiers hesitated, their scanners blinking wildly as energy readings spiked. The commander frowned. "Contain it carefully. We need it alive." Ilara felt her knees weaken. She knew she couldn't fight them, not with a child in her arms. So she took a deep breath and whispered to the hatchling, "It's okay, we'll go back, but we'll stay together." When they reached the colony, everything felt different. Alien eyes followed her through the corridors, some with disgust, others with awe. She could hear whispers. That's her, the human who bonded with the hybrid, the one who changed the readings. They led her to the main research chamber, the same one where she had first met the child, now rebuilt and gleaming with new machines. Scientists surrounded her, their eyes wide with curiosity. "Place it on the table," one said. "We must verify the data." Ilara hesitated, but the hatchling touched her cheek gently. As if to reassure her, she nodded and set it down carefully. The room filled with the soft hum of scanners. Screens flashing green, gasps filled the air. "It's true," whispered a researcher. "The instability is gone," another muttered. "No trace of corruption. Perfect alignment between alien and human DNA sequences." Ilara stepped closer, frowning. What does that mean? The elder scientist turned toward her, eyes wide with disbelief. It means, he said slowly, that this child is the first of its kind, the first being in history truly balanced between human and alien biology. It's not a monster, it's evolution itself. The council arrived moments later, silent and tense, their robes whispering across the floor. They observed the child who now sat calmly, staring back at them with curious, gentle eyes, the same eyes that once frightened them. It doesn't fear us anymore, one of them said quietly. Alara knelt beside the hatchling, smiling. It never feared you, she said. It only feared being alone. The room went quiet. Even the hum of machines seemed to fade. The eldest counselor stepped forward, studying Alara and the hatchling. You have done what we could not, he admitted slowly. You healed what we thought broken. Alara shook her head. I didn't heal anything, she said softly. I just cared. For a long time no one spoke. Then the counselor turned to the others. The human's connection to the hybrid cannot be ignored, he said. If she remains with it, we might learn more. If we separate them, we may destroy it. And just like that, everything changed. They allowed Alara to return to the nursery, not as a janitor, but as a caretaker, a guardian. Her quarters were moved next to the hatchling's pod, though now it was no longer sealed in glass. It played freely, learning to walk on its small claws, chasing holographic lights that danced around the room. Other alien hatchlings watched curiously, their parents hesitant at first, but slowly, they began to let their children near. One day, Alara noticed something incredible, a small alien child reaching out to touch the hybrid's wing. And instead of fear, there was laughter, pure and innocent. The sound echoed through the halls, and every adult who heard it froze because in that simple moment, the walls of fear that had divided two species began to crumble. That night, as Alara sat beside the child's bed, humming her lullaby, the hatchling curled up beside her, wings folded, its eyes glowing softly. From the observation deck above, the council watched silently, none of them speaking. One finally whispered, "Perhaps this is how peace begins." Alara didn't hear them. She only looked down at the small being she loved like her own, brushing its head gently. "You see," she whispered, "you were never a monster." And the hatchling, eyes half closed, made a soft sound in its new, human-like voice. "Mama." Tears filled her eyes. She smiled, her voice trembling. "Yes, little one. I'm here, far beyond the nursery walls, across the colony's silver horizon." The stars glowed brighter than ever before, as if the universe itself had chosen to witness this quiet miracle. Years passed, and the nursery that once echoed with fear now overflowed with laughter. Alien hatchlings of every kind learned and played together, and at the heart of it all was the hybrid, the one they had once called a monster, now a young being of radiant beauty and grace, standing proudly beside the woman who had never abandoned it. Alara had changed too. Her uniform was no longer that of a janitor. She now wore the white and silver robes of a colony caretaker. Her title, Guardian of Unity, but most simply called her what the hatchling had named her years ago, Mother. The hybrid, now grown tall with shimmering scales and soft human-like eyes, was known across the stars as Orin, its voice gentle but strong, its mind brilliant beyond any scientist's measure, and its heart deeply, endlessly connected to Alara. The bond they shared had not weakened with time. It had become legend. Every visitor to Arendor spoke of the sight in the nursery, alien and human children sitting together, listening to Orin's stories of kindness and courage, and Alara watching from a corner, smiling as if she already knew how far those small hearts would carry peace. But even in peace, shadows lingered. Across the galaxy, not everyone celebrated this union. There were factions, both human and alien, who still called it unnatural, who saw the hybrid as a symbol of contamination rather than hope. Whispers of rebellion began to stir, and one day those whispers became a threat. A message reached the colony, a warning from the outer sectors. Extremist ships approaching. Their mission, destroy the hybrid and all who protect it. The council panicked. Guards scrambled, ships armed for defense, but Alara remained calm, sitting quietly beside Orin in the dim nursery light. "They're afraid," she said softly, "afraid of what they don't understand." Orin turned to her, eyes glowing faintly. "They think I will destroy them," it said quietly. "But all I ever wanted was to belong." She placed her hand on its cheek, smiling through tears. "You already do," she whispered. You belong to both worlds now, and one day, they'll see that. That night, as the enemy fleet approached, the skies of Arendor burned with light, sirens wailed. Energy shields shimmered over the city. Yet the hybrid child walked calmly to the command deck, wings folding behind its back. The counselors shouted for it to stay hidden. You are too valuable to risk. But Auron raised a hand and the room fell silent. If I hide. They will never believe we mean peace, it said. Let me speak to them. Alara's heart pounded as she followed it to the broadcast chamber. She wanted to stop it, to protect it like she always had. But something in her heart whispered that this was its moment, its destiny. The transmission opened. Thousands of alien and human eyes across the stars watched as the hybrid appeared on every screen. The same being they had once called abomination, now standing tall, radiant, and calm. I was born from your fear, Auron said, its voice soft but powerful. You created me as a mistake. And she, it looked toward Alara. She chose to love that mistake, and through her love, I became something more. Across galaxies, silence held its breath. I do not wish for power or war, Auron continued. I wish for belonging, for both your hearts and mine to stop fearing what we could be together. And then, as the enemy ships drew closer, the hybrid spread its wings, glowing brighter than any weapon, its voice carrying across the void. If you destroy me, you destroy your own future, it said. But if you let me live, and if you let us live, then maybe we can all finally stop being alone. The transmission ended, and for a long, eternal minute, no one fired a single shot. Then, one by one, the enemy ships powered down. Drifting silently in surrender on the surface, the colony erupted in tears and cheers, soldiers dropping their weapons, scientists hugging one another, the council bowing their heads in awe. Alara stood behind Auron, her hands trembling. She could hardly breathe. The hybrid turned to her, smiling softly. They listened, it whispered. She nodded, her eyes glistening. They listened to you, she said. You did what no one else could. But Auron shook its head gently. No, it said, looking at her with that same innocent warmth it had as a baby. They listened to us. That night, under the silver glow of twin moons, the people of Arendor gathered in the central square, alien elders and human diplomats alike. And there, standing before them, Alara spoke for the first time to the galaxy that once ignored her. We built walls between our hearts, she said. But love found a way through, she looked at Auron, her voice trembling. This child was never a curse. It was a gift. A reminder that kindness is the oldest language in the universe. The crowd fell silent. And then, like a wave, they began to chant one name. Not hybrid, not monster, but mother. They weren't chanting for Auron. They were chanting for her, the woman who had risked everything to hold a crying child, years later after her passing. The people of Arendor built a monument at the nursery gates, a statue of a human woman kneeling beside a small alien child, both looking toward the stars. The inscription below read, She taught us that compassion is not human or alien, it is life itself. And every night, travelers would pass that monument, hearing a faint sound from the nursery nearby, a soft lullaby still echoing through the halls, sung by a grown hybrid with golden wings who still refused to sleep without hearing her name. Across galaxies, she was no longer just Alara the janitor. She was Alara, the human mother, the one who loved the monster, and in doing so, made the universe believe in love again,